listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is September 19th, 2025, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing on this fine Friday evening?
Spencer, hello, or should I say ahoy, because it's International Talk Like a Pirate Day, which means it's Pirate Day in WoW. So I'm doing great because I love Pirate Day because it's so silly. So that's where I'm at. By the time you hear this, Pirates Day will be long over, so you will not be able to engage in the festivities. So hopefully you had a chance to do that on Friday afternoon or Saturday morning or something. There was a new thing this year. There's a new shark hat that you could buy for like 1,000 gold, which is similar to one that was on the trading post. It's a palette swap, but I think it's cooler than the one we got on the trading post. But yeah, it was fun. I went down, I hung out in Booty Bay for like half an hour. I did the thing. One thing I do want to say is that, O'Leary's down there, that big shark that drops the joke book toy. O'Leary is on like a half-hour respawn timer and does not scale up particularly well for modern damage output levels. O'Leary does not have enough health.
He died quickly back in the day, too. Like he's always had this problem.
It's even worse. It hasn't gotten any better, is my report. I just wanted to go down and see what was up and just hang out and pirate it up. And so he only drops that one toy, which you get automatically from killing him. So I didn't really need to, but I just wanted to see what would happen. And yeah, I was there for probably 2 spawn cycles, and geez, he just gets deleted. And that could be kind of annoying if you're only there for that one toy that you can only get on one day of the year, and then it's on a half-hour spawn timer. So maybe next year they can improve that. I'm not optimistic because it's been like this, I think, since they put O'Leary in the game. But there you go. That's my Pirate Day report. I'm very happy with my new shark hat. I got my Dread Corsair costume from Dread Captain Demeza, and I got PD on my shoulder, and I busted out my Dread Wake mount, the pirate ship, and I had a great time. So
good.
That's what I was doing.
Nice. Yeah, he's not even a public tag, right? He's still group based. So as far as tagging him goes, so like even if you were someone who was there and fast to tag him, if you weren't the first person to tag him, then you don't even get credit for it either. Like
you might get just squeezed out if too many people tag him.
So
yeah, it's rough down there, and the toy's not even that good, to be honest. Like, it's kind of a funny idea, but like the jokes aren't really funny, and it's a half-hour cooldown to read a stupid joke out of the stupid joke book. So
yeah,
there you go. But hey, whatever. Pirates Day.
It certainly shouldn't be that long of a cooldown. I agree with you. I recommend people, I guess, instance hop if they're able to figure this out, and basically like hop around to different groups to try and find an O'Leary spawn might be the best way to do that. I don't know. But yes, it would be nice if they increased the health, made him a public tag like a world boss, and, basically made it so that he spawned a little bit more often. Those would all be really nice things to do to make O'Leary a little bit easier to access for people for sure. As far as this past week in World of Warcraft goes, we still have a few days left, which means I have not raided for this current lockout yet. However, I did raid for the previous one since we last recorded. So we went in and did a reclear and got to Soul Hunters on Sunday and killed Soul Hunters on Sunday. We did 2 pulls and dropped them. So it was just literally one of those things where we'd done the work and all the previous pulls. Small adjustments were made, people just executed right, and we nailed the boss, which was great. So that went down. And then we started looking at Nexus King. And that's when, you as a raid team for Mythic, it's important that you are, as I guess, what our raid leader's been doing and what our leadership's been doing, because it's smart, is gearing the people who you think will be in on the last 2 bosses. Because the last 2 bosses are going to have the most pulls, typically, of any bosses, right? You're going to spend the most time on them. So you want to be sure that the people who are going to be in for those bosses are as geared as they can be to make sure that they can reduce that prog time as much as possible to get those kills as quickly and easily as possible. And so we've been gearing our DPS like crazy, as you would normally do anyways. Typically DPS, then tanks in that order, and then healers sort of last, as far as the gearing priority goes for Mythic. And unfortunately, Nexus King is a 3 heal fight. And I say unfortunately because I feel like in boss design, ideally you have 2 tanks, you have 4 healers, and you have, the rest in DPS. So you're basically at 11 DPS inside that situation. And of those DPS, you have a mixture of melee and ranged, and hopefully it's not like incredibly punishing like Soul Hunters was, for example, for melee, so that you just don't want to bring any of them at all and you just want to bring 11 ranged if you possibly can. Like, hopefully you're not inside that scenario. But this is the issue with a lot of boss fights, is you can run into weird situations where, like, hey, bringing a 3rd tank is just the easier thing to do. And hey, bringing 3 healers is just the easier thing to do. And hey, bringing no melee is just the easier thing to do. And so it means that people end up going that direction inside the Mythic raiding community. And so what this means, for those who are curious about, Nexus King, is Nexus King was, last time I checked, I mean, obviously he's been nerfed since then. They nerfed the ads on the platforms, which makes it a bit easier to get back to the central platform. So it's more of an execution fight than it was previously, which is good. I think these are good changes that have come in. But it means Nexus King is probably going to take 3 weeks for us. 3 to 4 weeks, something like that, to get rid of Nexus King based off the amount of pulls that you're going to be doing. Now, we basically spent a night and a quarter on Nexus King, really just one night so far. So that I'm hoping it's 3 weeks is what we're looking at for that. We're then on to Dimensius. Dimensius is going to be another 3 weeks to sort of knock out Dimensius. Now we're going to have Turbo Boost kick in then. So like our whole raid team should, provided everyone's putting the effort in, go up by, a nice chunk, another 6 eye levels. And basically we've been getting gear between now and then. This week that's coming up, we're going to get the extra 3% damage bonus. There's going to be the 3% damage bonus that happens 2 weeks after that. So there is going to be some things that help that along. So we might end up looking at like a 2 week or closer to the 3 week Dimensius as far as that goes. But that really is 6 weeks for the last 2 bosses, right? Is what we're sort of looking at. And so if you're someone who's not in for those bosses, because any raid team would want to carry a 5 healer roster in case a healer's sick or has to be away. Any raid team would want to carry about 25 people on Mythic so that they have people who can sub in for people being away and what's happening with it. If you're not someone who's in for those fights and there isn't people who are sick or away, it means you just have the next 6 weeks off. You're just not going to be raiding, right? Because in most cases, you're extending at this point on those last couple bosses. So there's no re-clears that are happening. So you're just not going to raid for 6 weeks. And it's just the reality you sort of live in these scenarios. And so it's unfortunate in this case, we're going to have 2 of our healers who are just sitting on the sidelines for at least Nexus King. And then potentially, depending on where it's at, we might be at a 3 healed for Dimensius by that point. Might be sitting on the sidelines for Dimensius too. Who knows? So it's that awkward scenario of like, okay, like, why design fights like this? But also, like, this is just an unfortunate reality of choosing to run Mythic content and to be pushing Mythic content. So yeah, I'm one of the healers on our team. I'm most likely, because of Resto Druid just not being very strong overall comparatively to a lot of the other healing classes out there at the moment, especially for these 2 bosses. Resto Druid is strong in Mythic Plus. We're kicking butt in Mythic Plus. That's great. As far as raid goes, especially for these last 2 bosses, not very strong. I'm probably just going to sit for those 2 bosses. And you're like, all right, so like I'm going to have 6 weeks off of, hey, let's chill and wait for the team to kill out that prog, and I guess I'll like keep up with their polls and keep up with the strat in case someone gets sick or I need to come in. But it's like, it's just a weird reality to sort of live with as a Mythic Raider of like, hey, you only need 20 people. We need to carry a 25-person roster to follow up for attendance reasons. And because of how they design these bosses, we're sitting more healers than we normally do. So that is the situation that we're in. And you're like, man, okay, well, here we are. So yeah, it'll be, I'll be cheering the team on, obviously, from the sidelines, but it's going to be one of those odd scenarios to sort of be in. Now, I'll lend my help where I can as far as like reviewing logs and poking around at, healing cooldowns and where things can be used or not used as far as cooldown stuff goes for our team. But it's a very different kind of role that you're playing than being in there raiding on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I feel like it's tough. These kinds of situations are tough overall for team organization and morale and stuff like that. You mentioned the 3 tank strat fights and stuff like that. That's a thing that's gotten under my skin for years because it's so difficult to try to just swap somebody in, and say, okay, you're going to tank for this. And does anybody have a tank spec they feel comfortable playing? And in my case, with the way my team is currently constructed, all of my best, tanks that could sub in are all healers. And it's like, well, you're probably not ditching one of your healers for a fight where you're 3 tanking it or whatever. Just anything that messes with kind of that traditional, this sort of split between roles can put a lot of pressure on team organization, recruiting, just having a good handle on, what your roster's like and what you need it to be. So that is a tough spot. And yeah, I mean, then you end up in the position where, okay, Prague is done. We're going to start rotating people through, whatever. Now you're like hundreds of pulls behind other people's experience level with these fights, and that doesn't feel good either. So,
well, yeah, and typically for the first couple kills,
situation.
Yeah, and typically for the first couple kills after those initial kills, you bring the same people because you want to be sure you're killing the boss that week, right? So it's going to be longer than that period of time before you get to see those kills. You're not necessarily going to be in on the second kill of that boss. Most likely you're going to be in on the third or fourth kill of that boss because they want to be sure they're guaranteeing the mounts get out there. They're guaranteeing those things happen on a weekly basis, especially this go around because like we're on a timer for when that expansion's launching and all the guaranteed mounts and stuff goes away. So you want to be sure that we are getting enough kills in to get everyone in our team who participated through the tier, which is 25 people, mounts. So you're like, okay, well, we got to be sure we're at least doing this place, clearing the last boss 8 times, which is a lot to be able to make sure we're getting those mounts out. So yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not going to have that extra 4 months of like, okay. I mean, presumably we don't know dates or anything yet, but it seems like the writing's pretty much on the wall. Yeah. On my side, like I'm 2/3 of the way through the raid week. So last Sunday when we spoke, we still had a night left. I had missed, one night in the middle of the week, which was unfortunate, but, we had a couple heroic bosses up still because they did normal without me and they went all the way through normal and, they had alts in or whatever. And they just didn't have quite enough time to get all the way back through the rest of heroic, the first 6 bosses. So we picked up Sunday. We finished those 2 off and that was fine. So then we had time. We had not much time, but we had time for Mythic Soulbinder, which was enough time. So it took about 10 pulls. It's really not significantly harder than on heroic. So that was great. That feels like a nice win. And that meant that everybody got 2 bosses down for the week, which means a mythic choice from the vault. And also because of the way Manaforge Omega is constructed, the Soulbinder is considered the 3rd boss of the raid, which means if you kill that, then Mythic Lumithar's loot is on your loot table for the vault. So a couple people got Myth Track antennas. Nice. So that was awesome. Talk about value for that. Those 10 Soulbinder pulls. So that was really cool. This week was a normal week for me. So I've been in for 2 raid nights already, and we have another raid night, which is great. But we had a situation where we had 2 healers out Wednesday, so our only opportunity to 5 heal Plexus Sentinel, which is still what we wanted to do, was going to be on Tuesday. So, man, that was a high-pressure kind of deal because, I had a bunch of people in for Tuesday. I always have more attendance on Tuesday than the day of the week, and it was like, well, I found out that I was going to be in this situation like Tuesday afternoon, and I didn't want to tell a whole bunch of people not to show up. So we ended up doing the heroic skip, just the last 2. It went smoother than the prior week, so that was good. We didn't spend like an hour wiping on Demencia. So, we had time to get back through, heroic, finish off those last 2 bosses, reconstruct the group. And then we had time to get through Plexus, but I don't think we got any farther than that on Tuesday night. Wednesday, I ended up with exactly 19. I had a bunch of people out on Wednesday for various reasons, but I mean, I had, 26, 28, 29 show up for heroic last Tuesday. So I don't know where 10 people went, but that's where we ended up on Wednesday. We had the 6 bosses to clear on heroic. So we started with that and I was just like hoping somebody would log on. It got down to the wire and I'm like, please, we have literally 19. Like we just need somebody to log on so that we can get some polls and see if we can get Soulbinder tonight and kind of salvage the raid night, right? It'd be great to have a full night for Prague. Luckily, one of our healers who had been out, she hopped on so we could reconfigure the group and we only needed like 2 or 3 polls to re-clear Soulbinder. We had people in there who hadn't done it at all. So that was awesome. Really, really good to have that done by Wednesday night. We have Sunday night coming up. We have 2 hours to look at Lumathar. I don't know if we'll get it or what, but we haven't really given it an actual look yet. So moving right along, it feels good. It feels nice to re-clear this. The extra 3% is definitely palpable. Like it's kicking in and stuff was really dying fast. Some of the bosses on heroic are already getting silly, and we still need 9 percentage points of zone buff and turbo boost. Like heroic reclears are just going to be a cakewalk before too much longer. But yeah, I'm still really having fun in the raid, and I'm looking. What I'm hoping is that we can keep some attendance momentum going and just keep looking at new mythic bosses. I mean, with all the power on the table this season, as long as we can keep pulls going, then I feel like it's worth it to at least have a new thing to look at just to keep some variety. But that's what I'm realizing as time goes on, is that the challenge of kind of operating a quote unquote casual mythic team, for whatever that means, is like figuring out like where prog actually ends, right? And it's going to be different every season, and it's going to be for different reasons, and not everybody is always going to have the same feelings about like where or why it ended. And that's a reality that's dawned on me the last probably, I would say, like 2 tiers or so, and I don't really like it, but I guess at least now I'm sort of recognizing the stakes of it a bit more and understanding it more. So, you know, in some ways there's just nothing I can do about it. I don't want to run like a team that is more serious about mythic progression. I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to do that. So I'm not going to try to seek out raid members that want that, because we won't meet their goals. So it's, you know, it's a delicate balance of like what feels right for the team and where we're at right now. And so I knew the answer to that question in Liberation of Undermine, even though I personally wasn't happy with it. Where I don't yet know the answer to that question for Manaforge Omega. So that is what we will find out in the next few weeks, probably.
Yeah, my guess is Raz is what you're going to hit. I think you're going to hit Raz as this fight has enough of a mechanic / healing / damage wall that it just isn't something that people want to prog through. I hope they do, because if you get past a Raz, then you can pretty much get Fractilus for free, and that's kind of the advantage to that. So it's like, if you can manage to do this, then you can get Fractilus, and then you start getting, because loot scales based off of the highest high level boss you killed, then you start getting that. I think it's 714 or 717 drops, which are really nice and save you a bunch of badges and work and that kind of stuff out of your vaults. So that's really nice for that. So yeah, it we'll see what happens with the team. All right, Mythic Plus wise this week, there was a hotfix that went out. And the hotfix that went out basically said that, hey, the amount of rating that you are getting for completing content that had affixes was not correct. The affix was not giving you enough like score when you were defeating the keystones, which means anyone who'd done anything up to, I mean, really like any keystone up till 12, all that rating got shifted upwards. And so myself, who is resilient 12s and, you know, has some other stuff, I went from 3088, so 3088 rating, to 3144, so 3144 rating. That was my jump that I made from whatever they were doing. And it was just like this wild kind of like, oh, all right, well, that's 60 more rating I didn't previously have. That's great. So I was pretty happy about that. This week in Keystones, I was pushing some 15s. We were doing some 15s with folks, so I've gotten a couple more 15s that I needed, and just had some silly raid night keys, some silly fun night keys with friends, where we would queue into a 15 and then we'd just kind of flub it up because we were goofing around too much, and just fun. Like I think in like 3 hours we completed 3 keys. Like, it was just like whatever. And it wasn't that we stayed in the same key. It was like we'd do one, we'd fail it, we'd drop it, we'd try it again, or go over and do a different one, and that one would go okay or wouldn't. And like we timed 3 and did like we tried 5 or something like that, or 6 within that window of time, and just had some fun. And then today, actually, just before we were recording, I was like, okay, I've got 3 of 8 keys. I need to like smash some keys out. And so I'm up to 7 of 8 now. So I did 4 more keys before we started recording tonight, just to make sure I sort of caught myself up a bit. The reason why we're recording on Friday is because I work Sunday, Monday this week, and it is very long days. So we had to choose a Friday or Saturday night to record, and that meant that it was just I'm trying to get everything in before I start working again. So it is what it is.
Yeah, man, that hotfix, I think it came in yesterday. That was super nice. My vault is done. I've been busy with keys. I've been leaning on my crew, make sure we get our 4 keys in or whatever, so vaults can get done, even if people get a little sleepy. But some long nights. But we got a couple. Well, I should say I've been playing with a lot more of a rotating cast than I have in previous seasons this season, which is cool. But it means that like some people still need Resilient 12, so there's certain things we got to target for that. Some people still need 10s for teleport, so there's different things we got to target for that. I got a couple new 13s so far this week. Ecodome, which is just like basically free in the 12 to 13 range. It's a real nice one to get towards your resilience. Great dungeon. I think I saw an interview with, I think it was Ian, but it was somebody from the team who said that Ecodome was sort of like the blueprint for how they want to design stuff going forward. And if that's the case, I'll be happy. There's not a lot of terrible overlaps in there and stuff. It's like, do this right or else, but just, do one thing at a time right. So I really like that key so far. And the other one I got was Halls of Atonement, which is a place that I don't like and that I don't want to have to revisit too much. So it was cool. I think that was the first time I tried it on 13. Obviously, we've seen a whole bunch of nerfs and reworks to that place, so it was a lot more doable. But yeah, so at that point, I had 3 timed 13s, and my score was like 2948, and I'm like, geez, that's kind of low. I think I had 3K by the time I had 4 timed 13s in season 2. Well, okay. It's inevitable I'll get there, but it is a little weird. And then, yeah, I think I got like 50 extra points yesterday. So I'm at 2988. One more 13 in time will get me KSL 3K. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And then, I'm not like pushing for anything higher than that really, but I'll probably get 13 resilience just as a matter of course, just because we'll be doing stuff and like, why not do 13? I mean, 13's like, obviously 13s are a step up from 12s, but they don't feel that much harder. I don't really have the appetite for like pushing rating. I want to take what the game gives me. So that's kind of where I'm at. But yeah, I mean, continue to have a great time in there. I think there's some really fun dungeons in the pool, and it helps that my preferred spec and hero talent is super fun to play in keys. I mean, like I always do a lot of keys anyway. Anybody who listens to the show, I'm always talking about filling vaults or whatever, even late in the season. But yeah, I'm just really enjoying it. And I think the biggest thing is it really feels like I'm contributing a lot more maybe than in some recent seasons now that Thane is just blasting away. So it's been fun. And who knows, maybe Sunday I'll end up crossing that 3K barrier and getting my last like tangible reward from Mythic Plus progression for the season.
Yeah, and you mentioned Halls of Atonement, and I wanted to, while we had the topic raised of that place, the second boss in there, and I just talked about this with a couple people I was running keys with, like literally before the show. The second boss in there needs to not cast his stone form on healers. It is especially punishing to have a healer who needs to be moving into position or already pre-positioned, get enough hots and heals on themselves that they can then survive through being stunned for that period of time, and having the ticks that happen subsequent from that is very punishing when there's not someone else in there who can heal. So certainly that to me just seems like a logical, hey, let's not have this target healers. Let's have DPS or tanks be the ones who get targeted by this particular ability. So want to mention that there in case, BlizzDev happens to go, oh yeah, we should probably do that. That'd be good. That'd be a nice one.
Yeah, that boss's mechanics are a little wonky. And I mean, we did see some fixes last week, which have been nice, but that boss has never felt good to me ever. Even back in Shadowlands, I don't like that fight. But yeah. I mean, other than that, I've been keeping the alts rolling. I got my delves done early this week, which is nice. I had to pull kind of a late night last week to get some delves done for vaults. Both my monk and druid both pulled hero set helms from vault, so that was good. I think one of the druid didn't have the set helmet, and the monk had champ track, so they were 2 nice upgrades. So they both have hero 4-piece now, but each of them are wearing a piece that I don't want to be wearing. So still some stuff to slide around, but I'm getting there. It doesn't feel great, just doing delve gearing, but we're climbing the ladder. And 8s at this point are just a complete breeze. Like I don't even notice that I'm doing anything in there. The 11s aren't really hard, but they're not fast for those tunes either. So that's a little bit slower to get those first 3 done for the week at my guildeds and everything. But yeah, I'm having a good time with that too. to the point where I'm like, well, I kind of want to do more stuff because my outdoor has ramped down a lot, right? Like I do what I need to do outdoor to get keys for bountifuls or for the shards to make keys, and that's about it. Like I don't need renown anymore. I did all the different bounties for that weekly quest, so like I got the achievement for that. There's really no reason to keep doing those. So I was like, well, why don't I take the Demon Hunter out for a spin? Like I kind of have liked playing at this expansion, so why not? So I've been messing with her a little bit, not with any kind of priority where it's like, oh, I have to get all my delves in and I got to fill this row, because I just don't have that kind of time. But I will say I took her out for one, just let me get my quartz and I'll use that to summon Kaiveza in the delve, and I'll get my hero item. And guess what I got at the end of the run? A trinket. It was just like so demoralizing, right? Like I'm pumped up to play this character. I want to explore the play style and start powering up, and I need everything. I'm in like not even good season 2 gear. It's not like my higher tier alts where I came out in full hero gear. I was in stuff that I cobbled together from the Nightfall scenario and all that, right? Like 645 gear with some higher stuff sprinkled in. It's like anything could be huge. And it's like a trinket, which is maybe it's okay. It's stats. You need to have trinkets equipped, obviously, but it's like, how about a weapon or like a piece that I could catalyze? You know, I have the catalyst charges banked because I haven't been playing this tune. So the Delve trinket curse just strikes again and won't stop striking. So
all right.
I'm enjoying playing the tune, but man, I would like some positive loot reinforcement. That would be good too.
Yeah. All right. With that, let's hop into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, this week is Mists of Pandaria Time Walking, which means characters level 10 and above can gain access to time walking versions of Gate of the Setting Sun, Temple of the Jade Serpent, Stormstoke Brewery, Shadowpan Monastery, Mogushan Palace, and Skolomance. So you're able to get out there and get yourself some fast level up, as well as some 655 gear from the dungeon drops. The vendor for time walking is selling 632s. There's, of course, a quest to complete 5 of these time walking dungeons, which gets you a cache of Mana Forge Omega loot on normal, that champion track stuff. So the thing that was confirmed by many people is that you can get the boots from Soul Hunters out of these caches, which means if you're someone who has a character that doesn't have those yet, this is pretty worthwhile doing because it's an extra chance at that loot for the week. So it's certainly something that you might be interested in getting. So definitely be sure you're doing that.
Yeah, I mean, time walking is nice. There's some really good stuff for Mana Forge Omega. So I don't know. I might still want to do this on, like, you get the Brand of Ceaseless Hire out of there.
Yes,
and that's a really good tank trinket. And I'm not raiding on my alt tank. So, but unfortunately, there's still no raid tied to Mists of Pandaria Time Walking. We're still waiting for Throne of Thunder, hopefully someday, to be a time walking raid. So no chance at heroic or hero tier loot from this event. It's just not on the table this time. But pretty cool, fun dungeons. I mean, we might have a little bit of MOP overload because MOP Classic's out right now. We played Remix last year. Mists of Pandaria Time Walking was also featured in the last Turbulent Timeways that came around. So we've seen this content a bunch in the last like year and a half. But I still like it. I mean, I love Stormstoke Brewery. It's just one of my favorite dungeons probably ever. I think Jade Serpent's really good too, and the Skolomance rework is super fun. It's great on time walking because you just, it's the necromancy school. It's such a cool interior, and you just go blast everything down, and it's a good event. But it's not. I mean, I think it's not super good for gearing. The vendor gear is completely fallen off the face of the earth. It was never good, but it's 632. It's like, why is it even in the game? The stuff that it drops is not going to be great. You should just stop doing this as soon as you hit max level, basically. Hit max level, and I think there's 2 different quests you get for the time walking events now. There's like a level up one to do 5, so do that one if you're leveling up. Once you hit max level, you get another quest, do 5 more, and then you get your Mana Forge Omega cache. So that's pretty cool. It's a cool little jump start for a character you want to level.
Yeah, it certainly is. And if you're someone who wants to get some more reputation from Mists of Pandaria reps, you can go back to Mists of Pandaria and get the Sign of the Mist buff, which will be active, and get that extra 50% reputation gain from experience from quests and combat. Not, you don't get reputation from experience. That'd be a very weird loop. And yeah. The Koresh weeklies are up and are going. So if you want to get yourself the more than just a phase, your warrants, your ecological succession stuff done, I mentioned last week, I'll mention again this week, the ecological succession, obviously there's like, hey, just support and actually fill up that bar and get the cache and open that cache of Wriggling Pinnacle cache to get your rewards from that. But there's also the weekly quests you can pick up that reset on Friday. Then they don't reset at all. There's just a weekly quest that you pick up. There are the blue exclamation point quests you can pick up. Some of those give rep, some of them don't. So like, go in there, pick up the ones that give rep. Be sure you're using those if you're still trying to max out or if you want to get Paragon bags. Don't do the other ones, because the other ones will just give you weathered crests and 5 Valor Stones. That's all you get out of it. It's not worth doing them for anything, really. So just keep that in mind when you're picking these up. You don't need to pick up all of those quests, because a bunch of, like 5 or 6 of them are just not valuable when it comes to their rewards.
Yeah, I mean, what I usually do, my typical process with this, because I do this a lot, right? I got to do this for 3 tunes, maybe 4 tunes if I'm feeling saucy that day. So there's 4 quests you can pick up, and one of them is to collect anima from Devourers, and one of them is to collect food from Tazavesh, from the bad guys there. One of them is to fish stuff around the Ecodome, and one of them is tied to animals that are, or wildlife, I guess I should say, that are in the Ecodome. So there's also the Devourer assaults that happen like every half hour-ish. They're not on a strict timer, but they're about every half hour. Devourers will start attacking one of the Ecodomes. Those Devourers drop the anima, so you can double dip on that, because you want to go out there and do the event on a character once a week, because when you fill up the bar, when the shard that you're in fills up the bar for killing enough Devourers, then a big Devourer type boss spawns. And when you kill that, it drops a big old hunk of anima that you can turn into Venari for 20% completion on your cache. So the 4 quests plus that equals 100% completion, and the cache and the bountiful coffer key and all that stuff. So what I usually do is I go out there, I pick up whatever 4 quests are for the day, and then I just hang out in Koresh and I do those, and I just wait. You'll get a text alert when like there's a chat message when the Devourer thing starts. Just phase dive over there and knock that out and just double dip it with the Devour Anima quest. And that's a pretty easy way to get a cache done for the week. Yeah, it's not too bad. That is like, the problem is the timed event, and I'm always balancing like, okay, got to get Theater Troop done for those shards, and then I'll do now I got a half an hour until surge pricing, so let me go hang out in Koresh, see if I can catch a Devourer assault, and if I can, cool. If not, at the bottom of the hour, go do surge pricing. Okay, the Koresh is still on the list, but I have a bunch of quests to do. Got to do my phase diving for that cache, so can mix it up. The only thing I guess to be careful of is you don't get the chat message if you're phase diving. So you won't see the Devourer assault like happening if you're phase diving. So try to like wait until you do your Devourer assault and get your cache done before you do your phase diving cache. That's what I have found. Because like, again, I'm doing this on many tunes, so I'm trying to find like little efficiencies I can pick up. So that's my approach, but you can do whatever you want, but that seems to be pretty efficient for me. I can get all my stuff in terms of keys and key shards in, like, I don't know, about an hour or so if I get like decent luck with the Devourer assault spawning.
Yeah, and just keep in mind that a lot of this stuff resets on Fridays, so do it once earlier in the week, once later in the week, if you're trying to optimize for renown, and as Jason talked about, key fragments for doing delves and whatnot on different characters. Just keep that in mind. All right, Delves Weekly, speaking of Delves, is going to be next week, so we'll have the Delves Weekly popping up from Bran. So you'll be heading over to Bran to pick up your quest to complete, I think it's 5 Delves, and when you complete the 5 Delves, you'll get your next crafting reagent piece, as well as your next spark piece, as well as one of those reward boxes. So keep that in mind, as it'll be a good week to get that stuff going as well.
Sometimes there's different conditions on what the weekly is. Sometimes it's do 3, sometimes it's do 2 in a particular zone, something like that. Right. So just pay attention to like what Brand's actually telling you to do, because there's a little bit of a variety in the pool for this, but it's usually pretty simple. And I mean, Delves, I really enjoy Delves. They may not be everybody's cup of tea, but if all you're in it is just to get your weekly done so you can get your spark fragment, like You do it on any difficulty usually, so you just blow through it and call it a day.
Right. Outside of that, the brawl for the week is Deep Six. So this is Deep Six pits teams of 6 players against each other in 3 iconic battlegrounds: Warsong Gulch, Silvershard Mines, and Temple of Kot Magoo. Each battleground offers a little variation on the traditional format, such as flags are a bit closer in Warsong Gulch, there's less carts to keep track of in Silvershard Mines, and only 2 orbs within Temple of Kot Magoo. I actually really like the Temple of Kot Magoo version of Deep Six, so keep that in mind. It is a fun week to do a little bit of variety in these brawls. The Silvershard one's okay. I still think Silvershard Mines is one of my least favorite battlegrounds, but the Warsong Gulch is a bit weird. When the flags are like outside of the building, and you can pick them up. It's just a little odd. But when it comes to Temple of Kot Magoo, I actually like this version quite a bit with just the 2 orbs. Yeah,
I think that's the big winner with this one. But yeah, this is the opposite of the, hey, there's way too many people in this arena. This is, hey, there's way not enough people in this battleground. Right. So
yeah.
There you go.
Yep. And then we have Reshinor, the world boss, that you can knock out for some 688 warbound loot that'll get spread around. I think I got a plate belt this past week, and so that was another reward that went in the bank, and I can figure out who I'm going to throw that on. But you can get yourself a plate helm or waist, mail chest or waist, leather feet or legs, cloth shoulders or waist, or a haste mastery ring. That is a warbound piece at 688. It's a great way to start a character off. So just be sure you're knocking that out every week in case you have an alt or something that you're just trying to passively gear in some way. And even to that degree, if you're someone who's got a new character that's coming up, the Godfather at 642 eye level is still dropping some warbound stuff too. So that's a neat one to sneak in there too. It's just a good way to get an early piece that's higher than the 500 eye level stuff that you hit max level with on your character. So certainly something that's helpful. In some cases, characters are hitting max level with 200 and something eye level stuff, especially if you're doing time walking to sort of level a character up. So it is nice to get the 600 eye level loot when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's funny how the item levels for loot are like all over the place, and you can easily level faster than you can gear your character on the way up. So
yeah,
you'd end up in a weird gulf like that. But there are a lot of options, and even this, the older season world boss loot is at least something. I mean, 642 isn't outrageous to get you started, and hey, it's better than the time walking vendor this week. So yeah, there's some good stuff on Reshinor. Really, I picked up a bunch of different pieces at this point, but that. I know you got just rings showered upon you, but that ring is so nice for so many different
3 of them,
specs. Like, I mean, there's so much haste on that, and that can just kind of unlock a spec feeling good even in low gear. So that's a really nice item. And also, like, another thing is all the stuff is catalyzable, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. But we're gonna have opportunities to get more than that catalyst charge every other week once Turbo Boost comes in relatively soon. So yeah, just stocking up on stuff to catalyze is good too.
Yeah, for sure. And all those rings went to use. I have many characters, so that was my profession thing that I did meant that I have many characters at max level. So the rings all went somewhere, which is good. So it wasn't like I was just like lying around with a bunch of rings in my bank, but I definitely have a lot of warbound stuff sitting in my bank that I'm like, who am I throwing this on, and who am I putting that on, and trying to figure that out every now and then. I think that's an advantage to warbound, is it just feels really good to bring a character up and just be like, just equip this, and this that I've set aside for you, and suddenly you feel like you're more involved in the end game, or at least you've unlocked the ability to kind of hop into keystones at like a 3 and a 4 as opposed to like having to farm 2s or whatever, like to just try and get gear. So that's nice.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
You can just play what you want, right? I think that's the biggest thing that the whole warband concept has unleashed this expansion is, which makes it easier to play the game how you want to play it. You don't have to do as much stuff you don't want to do. Unless what you want to do is delves and you need a ton of keys, and then you have to do all kinds of stuff you don't want to do anymore, but you want the keys. But yeah, for stuff like that, it's great. And I mean, in my little window into WoW, among my team, like I'm seeing, I mentioned it the last few weeks, but I'm seeing a lot more enthusiasm and participation and people wanting to do keystone dungeons, which is awesome. But also people wanting to like swap around to some alts and do like low level keys. I think we had basically a full group of people from the team just doing like 2s through 4s this afternoon, just to do it. Just it's dungeon week still as we're recording this. So get that hero piece. It's like super rewarding and fun. So just having that flexibility and being able to play something different if you want to, without having to jump through so many different hoops and retrace your steps so many times has been incredible in this expansion, really.
Yeah. Speaking of keystones, next week's affix is Devour, which means there is a healing quota that is attached to each player whenever this affix pops, and you have to either heal that off or dispel it off. And by doing so, you gain a stacking buff of maximum health and critical strike. And failing to heal it off will heal enemies for a percentage of their health, which is something you got to pay attention to. So in general, this is where I recommend anyone who has any kind of dispel to just use it on yourself whenever this thing pops. Like if you're a mage, if you're a druid, if you're a paladin, if you're a priest, if you're, a warlock who has a pet out that can dispel, if any of those things, like just use your dispel inside of that window whenever this thing pops, because it just helps your healer out a massive amount. Now, in general, this quota isn't outrageous to heal through. It is something your healer can. What I found myself as a resto druid is more often than not when this thing would pop up and happen is currently in the current tier set, it's much better because I can essentially regrowth spam people and do that for a fairly low cost of mana and sort of get through that. But what I was doing last season was just basically using my Convoke every time this thing popped. It would pop, I'd hit Convoke, it would clear it off, but it just meant that I just never had Convoke up for any of the other opportunities where I would normally use it. And, you're looking at like a Priory, you've got the tolls going off, this debuff absorb thing goes out in between toll 1 and toll 2, and there's 2 more tolls after that are going to be happening because your tank pulled half of the room when it was pulling before that boss. So yeah, like you have this healing thing go out. It's an easy way for someone essentially to die because you're just not able to top them off fast enough inside that window with the tools that you're sort of given. And so it's just keeping that in mind. And if you can dispel yourself, take advantage of dispelling yourself and save your healer from needing to worry about it as much. Like the healer can get 2 of them pretty easily inside that window with the spells, and it does use a global, which is unfortunate. I still think dispel should be off the global cooldown. I don't know why it is on the global cooldown in the first place, but it is. So that is something that healers have to deal with. But I think it's worth the 2 globals if you're in a situation where 1 or 2 targets are taking the majority of damage and the other targets aren't, but you need to get rid of the debuffs, so you're dispelling. So that helps out a lot if other DPS can pitch in and deal with this as well.
Yeah, for sure. One thing, I guess, I usually mention this when we got Devour Week coming up, is sometimes self-heals and things of that nature, like you need to actually be able to receive healing. In other words, you need to not be at full health. So it's just, that's a weird thing to keep in mind because, I have like a modest self-heal on a relatively long cooldown, but I have one, but I can't always use it, when the affix pops. Because especially with all the absorbs and stuff that we have now in this season with the tank cloak and the current like good tank trinket setup and everything. So yeah, you just have to be aware of that. Like you may not be able to use a self heal on yourself depending on how the effect works and things like that. But dispels are always a good idea if you can bring anything, especially if you're not in a coordinated group. I think that's the biggest thing for this week coming up is like if you have a way to take care of yourself, even something as bad as like bitter immunity, the warrior talent that lets you remove it, it's an awkward talent to take and it's a long cooldown, so you can't even use it every time it comes out. But at least you could do it. You get like basically half of the time it's going to happen in a dungeon. You should take it, especially if you're just pugging and you don't have a lot of communication. It's try to assist your healer if they ask for help with it in terms of taking those kind of niche talents and everything, then you should be doing it. It just kind of depends on the social situation, I think, but it's not an overly punishing mechanic overall. But you know what? You were talking about dispels being off GCD, like interrupts are off GCD. So I think that's fair game. And it's like dispels cost mana. So there's a cost associated with it in addition to the GCD. I think it would be okay. Although that might also mean that they have at least in previous eras of WoW development, if they let you have an off GCD dispel, then that would mean there'd be effects and curses and all kinds of stuff that they would put on that they would expect you to dispel extremely quickly. So
well,
there'd be a tax on the no GCD on that. I don't know if they would do that in 2025, 2026 though. We're in a bit of a different era as to how they approach some of this stuff. So maybe not. But
it's true. I would just say that to piggyback on that, I would just say that they also have to acknowledge that dispels have like 9-second cooldowns in most cases, sometimes longer for different classes. So you can't have two of them go at the same time. And you don't want to create a situation in Mythic Plus where, hey, if you happen to pull these two packs together, you just wipe every time because you don't have two dispels. They would just never want to do that because it's just so anti-fun for everyone that I don't think they would lean the direction of being like, yeah, we're going to put debuffs in that, you know, will 100% kill someone because it's a ticking time bomb that goes off and does 30 million damage to the person after 5 seconds or whatever it is, right? So it's just impossible for you to hit unless you have a mass dispel from a priest, which is silly. So I would hope that wouldn't happen, but you never know. Like they've done sillier things in the past, like you said. So we'll see. Although I agree with you that their whole mentality towards reactions having to be really quick has shifted towards them going, hey, we want to make mechanics that you need to learn how to do and less mechanics that you have to react to incredibly quickly. So that's good. I think that is the correct direction, especially with an aging player base. I don't think leaning on people having a 1.25 second reaction time is something that you should be doing. Being like, well, we'll make it 1.3. I mean, people have 1.25 on average, right? So we'll make it 1.3. Yeah. Everyone can hit that, right? And it's like, no. Let's make it 2.
I think like it's just more fun overall to make the game feel like you have wider windows to react to things and problem solve and you know, make choices. You know, and I think we have seen them move in that direction more in the last couple years, but I do think it could still be better. So yeah, some stuff like that. I mean, like the interrupt pressure. You know, I mean, I feel like interrupts are sort of the you know, they go kind of hand in hand with dispels, right? And it's like there's a lot of pressure around interrupts, and I mean there should be because you know you want fights to feel dangerous, right? The mobs shouldn't just be things that stand there while you kill them. You know, I think there's been times where they've taken it over the top with the amount of interrupts and stops and stuff that are required, and that kind of takes players more out of a rhythm. You know, so there's a balance there. You want to have that layer of challenge. You want to have things that people need to react to, and like damage shouldn't be the solution to every single problem in combat, but also if everybody's just kind of holding their breath waiting for, you know, okay, I'm going to interrupt this, I'm going to stun that, I'm going to fear this, and I'm going to whatever, you know, go down the list of whatever's happening in a trash pack, like that's like actively less fun to me. I think it's cool to use like the tool that's built for the purpose in the correct situation and use it, and you get you feel good about it. You have a positive effect happen in combat, and then you continue doing the other stuff you want to be doing. Like that's kind of the sweet spot. And but I think they've done a good job of approaching it. But man, sometimes like look at Halls of Atonement, right? Like when that old stuff comes back, it doesn't really line up with the game that we want to be playing in 2025 sometimes. And then they go, oh, let's take some of these casters out. Like, let's increase these cast times a little bit on some of these abilities. Let's bring this more in line with the experience that, you know, players are telling us they want to have. We've seen that a couple times, especially with like Shadowlands dungeons coming back and getting, the timer's got to be a little bit longer. This mob comp is a little off. This is a little punishing.
Yeah, we've been on the topic long enough. My mind has now thought of an example of a debuff that you need to dispel quickly, otherwise it just destroys people. And it's the well, I guess it depends on what order you go in. It's the twins boss, the two bosses inside Floodgate that put down bombs. They throw out a dispellable debuff on an individual that when you dispel it clears the bombs around that individual. That debuff trucks people's health. And if you get 3 ticks of that, it kills you. Like, if you're at full health and it is applied to you, within 3 seconds, you're dead. So you have to be sure that you're either dispelling it very quickly from the individual or that you are healing them. And when you dispel it, it does additional damage. So if you don't dispel it in the first, 1.5 seconds, the person's probably dead. unless you have a bunch of healing running on them. So like that to me is an example of a deal. I would just say it straight up, like that should be changed. They should go, this thing should tick 0.75 or 1 second in general, like slower than it currently ticks. It should. I'm fine with it ticking for a bunch of damage. It shouldn't tick for the amount of damage it does, and it shouldn't have the explosive damage it has when you dispel it for that to actually kick off. I think those things are very punishing on that debuff, and it means that you have to have very fast snap reaction, not only as the player who gets it, but as the person who's dispelling it, because what the mechanic is for that debuff is you get it, and then you have to move to where bombs are, and then be dispelled in that position. And so if that doesn't happen in 2 seconds, then that person probably dies unless someone has thrown like a big shield on them or a large damage reduction, or they hit a personal of some kind. I think it's just the play around that to me is just too punishing. It should be that could be lightened up, in my opinion, as far as a debuff goes, that is dispellable. I thought of it. All right. Brewfest is coming up. It's coming up Tuesday. It's happening very soon. This Tuesday, the 23rd of September, it kicks off. It's going to run until the 9th of October. And yeah, we don't know if there's anything new, but you can get out there and do the sausage eating competition. You can defend Brewfest from the invaders. You can do all sorts of silly things and games. You can do your ram riding and go through Ironforge or Orgrimmar and yell about all the fun, fancy foods that you can have people come down and try and advertise and just have a good old time. It's just in general, just a good old time for people to enjoy. So I certainly recommend getting out there and trying it. We don't know if they've updated the loot table yet. There was, like, I had implied and asked and poked at Blizzard to be like, hey, it'd be really great if Corin Direbrew's loot was warbound. That'd be really nice if you could do that, because that would be a really sweet thing to do with these bosses. If all of these bosses for holidays dropped warbound loot as opposed to dropping loot for, your particular class that you're doing it on, because then you can share it with your alts a lot easier. That would be cool. So we'll see. Maybe there's new mounts too. Who knows?
Yeah, I think there is a new mount that I think is from Corin. There's definitely some new stuff, but I don't know if there's anything new to do. So there is a ton of stuff to do already. Brewfest is one of the cooler, like, big holidays. It's maybe my favorite one to actually do. I think the activities are the most fun, probably. And, there's always funny rewards. It always makes me kind of think, well, should I, play dwarves more? Because, you have to kind of, I feel like you get a sausage hat or whatever. Like, Who are you playing that on? That just goes on a dwarf. But
you get the tankard shield. You get, you can actually wield tankards as weapons. Like, yeah,
you just lean into the whole thing. So yeah, to me, that's always the Brewfest kind of vibe. But yeah, there's going to be some new stuff this year. Unfortunately, we don't have the blog at press time. It'll probably be out Monday, but sometimes they wait until the event's actually live to push it. So check in, Tuesday. By Tuesday reset, there should be something published that includes everything. Maybe a little bit later, because I think the event doesn't start until a couple hours after reset. But all the details will be in there, and we'll cover them next week in detail about what's on offer this year. But yeah, I guess when we saw, what was the last holiday boss we had? Ahun, and that stuff wasn't warbound. It would be nice, because it's not really good loot. Like, it's sort of in that time walking loot category of like, why does this even exist in the game? What are we using this for? But I guess the problem with that would be you would get so much of it, because I don't know, maybe this is just me, but when I get a warbound piece, even if it's a piece of garbage, it goes in the bank, because you never know.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
sure.
Maybe I want to play a character, and maybe I get that character to level 80, and maybe even though this is bad or easily replaceable, this character can use it, and now I have attained value from it. Whereas if it was just soulbound and it's a bad piece of loot on my main or a decently geared alt, it's just getting vendored. I'm not burying myself in warbound loot that I'm realistically never going to use. I've already done that once this expansion. I had to dig out my whole war bank because it was full of crap that I was holding onto for no real reason. So that's maybe more of a me problem. But I think more flexibility with it would be cool. What would really be cool is if, I would say, what I want to say is it would be cool if the loot was just better. But the holiday bosses are pointless. They don't represent any kind of a challenge. There's no even barrier to accessing them. You just queue up for them, and then they die in 4 seconds.
Well,
They can't put loot on them that's too good because you're not really doing anything to get it.
Well, and keep in mind, right? Like I've already been very much in favor of, hey, the first time you kill a boss for that day, that is your best opportunity to get the drop. It's your highest drop chance of getting the mount or whatever it is you're looking for. So that to me is how I feel like the Warbound fits in, because it'd be the first kill on that boss every day gets you a piece of Warbound loot. And you're like, okay, all the other kills don't give you loot. Yeah, it's just the first one. Good. So it's really just encourages people to go in, kill them once, try and get their mount. Whatever they get off of it, they most likely can use. If you end up with 6 daggers, you're probably selling 4 of them. Like, that's most likely what's happening in this scenario. Like, you're not going to be hanging on to all these things necessarily for all that time. Listen, Jason might have a tab. His Warbag might have a tab of just daggers by the end of this.
In case I want to level a 3rd rogue that I'm never going to play.
17 more rogues later on.
Yeah. You never know. Yeah. It could happen. And they'll be like, oh, I had that dagger.
You had that dagger. If only Brewfest came around again. Oh, wait, it's every year. Who knows, right? Yeah, so that to me is one of those things that they could swap up that I think could be really nice, is getting Warbound loot off these holiday bosses. All right, there was a hotfix that went in for Saladar in Raid, because apparently people were running into a bug where they were killing him on normal heroic difficulties, and he was respawning after they'd taken some time off and a soft reset had happened on the Raid. So yeah, that's a problem. You shouldn't have him up multiple times, because you only get loot off him once. So yeah.
Yeah, that must have felt really bad. This didn't happen to me, luckily. I think it was related to using the raid skip, and then so if you skipped and then
had a soft reset
basically means like everybody zones out. The instance is vacated, and there may be some timer involved in that, but. So, for example, like maybe you skipped to Nexus King, you defeated Nexus King, maybe you had a wipe or 2 on Dimensius, and that was the end of raid night, and you left. Then you came back and you zoned in, and guess what? Nexus King was there, and you were already loot locked to it, and you had to kill it again anyway, just to continue pulling Dimensia. So that was going on this week, but it has been fixed, so you shouldn't encounter that anymore. So if you were wondering why that was happening, that was why.
Yep, that was why. They also have done a nice big blog content post update thing that they did for what's happening with Legion Remix and 11.2.5. Now, we've talked to death all of the stuff that's coming out with this new part, but we'll do our little recap to make sure that everyone's aware of what's coming up and what they can look forward to. On October 7th, this is the big announcement date. October 7th is when we're getting this patch. The 11.2.5 as well as Legion Remix launch is all happening then. And Remix obviously is launching with like remixed artifact weapons and the heroic world tier, where you can turn the outdoor world up to heroic difficulty, get better rewards, level faster, all that craziness. Time warped obelisks are going to be available that are out there for events that you can participate in. You got your class order halls happening still. The time worn Keystone dungeons are happening, where we're expecting people to be doing like Keystone 179 or something like that by the time we're through all of this, as those Keystone levels just crank up and go higher and higher. They also put out a little release schedule for Remix, which we're seeing here. So October 21st is when we are getting the Rise of the Nightfallen with Return to Karazhan, Nighthold, the Suramar campaign, and more. Man, the Suramar campaign is like burned into my memory. That like getting the fruit from the tree and helping the tree grow, and like, oh man, that was like a big deal.
Yeah, it was so cool. The storytelling was really cool, and
good.
I got to imagine it'll all be accelerated, right? Because it's Remix, so it's not. Back in Legion, we had one quest a week or whatever, one chapter every. Yeah, it was something like that. Well, not one quest, but one chapter. I imagine that it'll be condensed, and you'll be able to basically just do the whole campaign starting October 21st.
And then on the 4th of November, we get Legion Fall, which is Broken Shore with the Cathedral of Eternal Light and Tomb of Sargeras. And then on the 18th of November, we have Argus launching with the Seat of Triumvirate and Antorus the Burning Throne. So that gives you like 2 and a bit months to sort of like make sure you're trucking through content inside of this. They do say that the Infinite Echoes, where the catch-up opportunities, are going to kick in on December 9th. Which makes me think that they're probably wrapping up Legion Remix for the new year at some point. So that is like, we know we basically have until at least mid-December of remix time for you to be able to get out there and do this content and enjoy it before it starts to go away. There's no end date announced, but they have mentioned when the catch-up opportunities kick in, which to me tells me, hey, here's your final chance kind of idea for what they're looking to do with this kind of stuff. So yeah, need to see the launch schedule.
Yeah, I'm thinking probably it's basically 2 months from launch to Infinite Echoes, right? Which is, I'm guessing they're going to do stuff like crank up drop rates on stuff and crank up bronze yield and whatever else. That's what I glean from the more rewards phrase in the graphic. Catch up opportunities, I'm going to guess, is probably about XP leveling and maybe some gear catch up or something. I don't know what remix content updates means. That maybe there'll be some new stuff to do or some other way to like access the content, maybe some way to speed along through certain things or whatever. I would think that it's probably going to be 2 months of ramp up and then 1 month in this sort of state where everything is unlocked, available, everything is on fast forward. So yeah, it would just kind of make sense, right? Turn that on the 9th. That Blizzard traditionally takes the last like couple weeks of the year off for the holidays.
Right.
And then, let it run through until, early January. That would be my guess. I mean, obviously it's not official, and they did mention in the video they put out when they first announced Legion Remix, they wanted to sort of communicate about the schedule and have time for people who don't want to make Legion Remix like a daily routine or even a weekly kind of thing. Like people who just want to wait until everything is available and then have some time to play the game in that state. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Obviously, like there will be more details about the end of the roller coaster forthcoming, but that's what we know for now. It sounds cool. I mean, from what I've played on PTR, they're doing some interesting things with it, and I think once people really start ascending to those high power levels, it'll be really fun. Obviously, there was a ton of stuff to do in Legion. It's to this day my favorite expansion and era of the game ever. There's just so many great little nooks and crannies in this expansion, stuff to explore, great dungeons, great raids. They also put out with this post really cool, I believe it's new art of it's the Tomb of Sargeras, and you can see Argus in the background, and it's really cool. It's a nice treatment for Legion Remix. So that was nice, but not a lot of like super new details here. A lot of this stuff was basically the same as the announcement, Yeah. So just dialing in the date and the schedule and just having an idea of, okay, this is starting soon. It is coming in pretty fast, but this is actually, we were talking about this in the Discord this week. This is like 8 full weeks out from Ghosts of Koresh, which is actually the longest gap between patches we've had in a couple patches. We only had 7 weeks between .1, .7, and .2. So this is an extra week. And the other thing is there's stuff obviously that's going to change for season 3, but there's no new like season 3 War Within content coming with this update. Whereas, in 11.1.5, we had Nightfall come in pretty early there after Undermine. And that was the patch where they were kind of drip feeding some new feature to play every couple weeks, but nothing was really too meaty. It was something you jump into for a little bit. It was okay, but it wasn't anything substantial. There isn't anything equivalent to that in this patch. There's nothing new to go do in War Within, in Koresh, in some other zone. So, I think that it's good in a way because it means if you don't care about Remix, then this patch coming relatively close on the heels of Ghosts of Koresh doesn't necessarily represent too much for you in terms of stuff to do. If you really care about Remix, you can jump in there and spend time in there, and there's nothing in War Within that's sort of pulling your attention away. So, I think it's okay. It's totally in line with where I expected the patch would land because they have just been dropping a patch every 2 months like clockwork. Now, I think .7 might be a little delayed because of the holiday break and everything like that, and I think that's a good idea if that's what they end up doing. I think if you leave Remix up and running through the end of the year, I don't think players need anything in that space, right? Like we'll have that if we want to do it. You can finish up whatever stuff from season 3 you're still doing. I don't think it's mission critical that we get that 2-month, cadence and get that patch out in early December. But also, they may just let Legion Remix run through a patch release as well. That wouldn't be, I could see that happening too. So, just a lot of options. There'll be a lot of stuff to play. And that, the Legion Remix may run basically, there'll be a gap, but like pretty close on the heels. Then we'll have midnight pre-patch probably with housing and all that coming in if you pre-ordered. So, man, it's just going to be so much stuff to play. But it's just, I think that is the good thing here for me. And I think I've mentioned in the show, like I have mixed feelings about playing Remix, and like, I know I'm going to play this, but do I really emotionally want to? I don't know. The fact that like I'm continuing to ramp down a bit with Koresh with season 3. So that gives Remix some room to breathe for me. And it's a thing like, okay, well, instead of doing 20 keys this week, I will, I'll play some Remix, and I'll get some power, and I'll get some bronze, and I'll collect some stuff. Like that sounds like a good rhythm to me. And also I think those kind of little less substantial events like Nightfall or something, that doesn't have as good of a place at the end of an expansion because we're done. I have nothing else to do. What am I gearing up for? What's the next step? We know the big reset's coming. So what is the catch-up gear doing for many of us at this point, right? Like if you put in a thing where it's like, oh, you can get easy veteran gear, that's much less attractive in at the end tier of an expansion than the middle tier, I think.
It certainly is, unless people are looking to experiment with particular character combinations, which we may see some new character combinations in that pre-patch kind of window for people to sort of, level something up and play around and get used to what it's going to feel like. Typically, we see in pre-patches to expansions, the new talent tree stuff comes out, and people are playing around with that a bit. So there's going to be stuff for people to sort of do. But yeah, I agree with you that, veteran style gear is certainly not exciting stuff to be getting. It's very much stuff you bounce off of. You don't really step on when it comes to gearing up your character, because you're going to be like, delves alone are just dropping champion track for just running delves. Like that's just, you might as well do that if you're trying to really gear up a character fast. So I agree with that. I do feel like 8 weeks to turbo boost is fast to a certain degree to me, but I also recognize that coming out of turbo boost, we're not going to have a lot of time between it and when we actually get pre-patch. And so that to me is like, okay, it feels like everything's kind of in a rush. And I guess I feel a little bit of pressure, a little bit of anxiety around making sure we clear the raid tier and we have enough farm weeks to A, get everyone mounts, but also B, feel like we've gotten enough of a break before, hey, here's the next thing, right? I think it's important to me to feel like that. And I would love if during that period of time where we're feeling there's a break, I could go out and check out Legion Remix and play around with that without feeling like I, need to be still focused on prog and other things like that with raid. So I do hope that, turbo boost, as well as the other passive nerfs that are happening with us getting 3% more damage and healing and that kind of stuff, speeds the process along a bunch so that we can get into that one night clear and getting the mounts out regularly and like having people have the breather time before it's okay, here's pre-patch, okay, here's next expansion, here we go into the next thing, right? So I think that breather time is important. I've always treasured it. So it'll be good to see if we get that or not. We'll have to find out what stuff feels like and how fast stuff gets cleared, and whether or not we even see the amount of teams that cleared the last raid tier clear this raid tier on Mythic, and whether that's something we're seeing, or if those numbers are going down, which is also something you got to watch out for when you're talking about this content.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the ramp down time is really important, even if it means that maybe some people aren't playing at all. Like I think I'm the kind of player that I'm always in WoW doing something, right? If I'm sort of done with the headline stuff in the game, then I'll find some little side project to do. And maybe I won't play as much, obviously, when stuff is stale, but I still like to be in and doing something. But some players just want to step all the way away and recharge. And yeah, I do think you need that. And this is going to be a change. We've never seen a release cycle like this, So I think there's going to be some stuff that feels good, some stuff that feels bad. And there's going to be some mistakes on Blizzard's part for sure. There's going to be stuff that doesn't land because some stuff is coming too fast for many players to really enjoy, I think. But I think in general, at the end of the day, it's good to deliver more stuff than less stuff.
Yeah. But
it's a balance, We did get a couple additional details about, Turbo Boost. Nothing shocking, but they're doing it in like 2 phases, right? So when the patch comes out, it's not everything yet, but you are getting the additional upgrade tracks on Hero and Myth gear. So you get the 2 extra upgrades on those. And we'll get the augmentation matrix, so you can get your crafted items up those extra item levels, which is cool. It seems, and maybe my math is off or something, but I feel like I'm way farther away from being, caught up with or like done with gilded crests than I was in season 2, but it's like the same amount of time. So I don't know what I'm missing.
So here's the deal, because I am at 711 eye level on my druid at the moment, and our most geared player, which happens to be one of the like most geared mages in North America, is 719 is where he is now. And
close to done for pre-turbo boost.
He will have enough gilded crests to have maxed out every piece of mythic gear and unlocked the mythic reduction, your gilded crest reduction for all of his other characters by the time turbo boost comes out. The week turbo boost comes out will be literally like he'll have his last upgrade in the first 15 crests you get kind of thing in that window. Gotcha. And so if you're someone who has been just handed as much gear as you possibly could be handed, right?
Every
slot like has been like, and there were lots of slots where he was saving gilded crest because he had a normal piece and went straight to a mythic piece, or he had a heroic piece and went straight to a mythic piece. There were lots of slots like that. And obviously, like when you get Fractilis and you kill Fractilis and it's a 714 item level piece that drops, then that saves even more upgrades. Like with all of that stuff that happened with his character, he still will be like just hitting the point where he's finished with gilded crests as turbo boost comes out. So that to me says that there's something different with acquisition with turbo boost, whether we had more time last time, like maybe there was 2 more weeks last time. I don't know what the release was for when turbo boost landed for the last time that it came out, or whether it was a situation, because it didn't land with .2, it landed with .7, so it was between .5 and .7 that this happened. And so I think it was, I think that was longer. I think that was longer than 8 weeks. But that to me is one of those windows where, there's something different. I'm with you. I know for me, when we hit turbo boost, I will still be needing catalyst charges to finish all the catalyst stuff I want to do for my character. I'm still wearing normal gloves. So like I haven't even been able to like start upgrading those yet. Like there's just a lot of weird gear situations that are happening. So there was actually a big conversation that we had in Discord, myself and a few other guildies, about eye levels and gilded crests and how it's working. And a lot of them were like, I think by the time we hit turbo boost week raid time, which is the Sunday of that turbo boost week, he's like, on average, I think our team eye level will be like 726 is what they were saying. And I'm like, I don't know if it will. I think there'll be enough people who just haven't gotten mythic pieces yet to actually hit that point. And now you then have to put enough effort in during that week to have enough crests to be able to upgrade all of the other pieces you have, even if it's normal pieces or heroic pieces. You still have to or crafted pieces. You'll have to upgrade those. And like I think it'll be close. We're curious. It'll be like a little like non-actual costly wager that we're doing of like, can we get to 726? I don't know if we can, but we'll find out, because we're going to be able to craft an extra piece of gear this week. We'll craft an extra piece of gear during turbo boost week, and then we'll have the fact that you can convert all of your old crests, your weathered and runed, up into gilded. So you should be able to get, like, if you've been almost maxing those out, like 170 or 200 gilded crests just from all the conversions that'll happen, which will boost you up really fast that week. And then you do your Mythic Plus stuff, because it will have uncapped gilded crests. So you'll be able to use those upgrades, and you upgrade all your crafted gear. Like, we'll have to see what it ends up looking like. But I think there's going to be people who, like, they can't get higher than 718 or 719 just because they have some pieces of gear that are holding them back, in that they aren't mythic yet, and you can't actually push them that high.
Yeah, right. They only go as high as they go. Now, I will say there's nothing in this post that they're going to take the crest cap off.
Yeah, they haven't officially said it.
I assume that they will, but like it doesn't say, and maybe because the main focus is Legion Remix in this post, they didn't want to get too in the weeds with that stuff. But like, I hope they do, because that's kind of, if you extend the treadmill, I'm trying to figure out like what the best metaphor here. I don't know if it's a ladder or a treadmill, but if you make it longer and you don't uncap the crest, then it's just like, okay, well, this just takes longer.
Yeah.
The crest cap, I think the crest cap is great for the first couple weeks. And I think even at 8 weeks, it's too far out. Like it's been in for too long, because I think the reason why it's good to have is because it just throttles the people who are going to zoom ahead of everybody else if there's no guardrails in place.
Yeah.
Because there are some people who can just play a lot more and they can do a lot higher content and they can get way more power, and then they'll have all that stuff. And that creates an imbalance that is not fair or fun for everyone.
Well, it's a radical imbalance. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's not like, oh, well, they're like 3% better. It's a huge power gap. But after a couple weeks, it really narrows. It gets much more narrow, because the people who are not going to do that just aren't doing it, and they're not going to start doing it. And then the people who've been capping, everybody's now sort of in a place where you're going to stay a bit closer together as things progress. So, I think 8 weeks is too long to remove it, but hopefully they're doing it here. My guess is that when the stuff they say soon after the release is going to be 2 weeks later, so probably the 21st. Because that would be 10 weeks, which is, I think, 10 weeks after season 2 is where we saw the you can warband transfer Valor Stones, and we're going to up the warband gear drops, which they're doing. They also say that we'll get the puzzling cartel chip vendors. This sounds like it's going to work the exact same way, and we'll be able to get up to 3 per character during the season. They say they're for adventurers who have proved themselves worthy, which I assume means you got to kill the boss on your difficulty 12s. Of choice. You got to have your 12 resills for all that. They do say weapons, trinkets, and cantrip items from season 3 dungeons in Mana Forge Omega. So it sounds like boots will be on offer. The boots are a cantrip item; they have to be, right? And there's some other stuff too. There's a couple other items with special effects on them in the raid, so that stuff should be on offer. So that's cool. One cool twist that they don't really give us any details on is ethereal void splinters, which are the things like when you get the achievement that gives you the extra catalyst charge, that's what it is. You can earn more of them from Mythic Plus dungeons, Mana Forge Omega, delves, and rated PvP. Don't know how or why, but getting extra catalyst charges sounds awesome, especially since once we get decently far into the season, what do you really want to use your catalyst charges for? Transmog. So it'll be cool to be able to earn that and not have to wait until pre-patch and then it's end of season and whatever, when then the catalyst is free. It's like, if we could just earn catalyst charges from playing the game, I think that'll be a really cool addition for the end, because as we ramp down, especially at the end of an expansion, I get super into collector mode. Like, I'm not going to come back to this content for a long time, so let me get all the MOG appearances I can get. Let me just check stuff off the list. So having more flexibility with the catalyst seems like a cool addition. So we need a little bit more details on this, but I'm starting to think like I love Turbo Boost in season 2, even though I was mad about the chips. So you go back and listen to that episode where I was all tuned up about that, but it turned out okay. But I think it'll be better in season 3, because there are items in Mana Forge Omega that, like, if you can kill the bosses on heroic, like the heroic Soul Hunters loot is so good that I wouldn't replace it with anything but the mythic loot anyway. So, if I can't get it, I can't get it. I'm happy with it, and I'll be even happier with it with the Turbo Boost item level. I think my only thing is, why not just have hero and myth upgrade tracks be 8 ranks? Just put them in the game that way. Because, okay, I got my myth, set legs. Okay, I'm going to use these legs for the rest of the expansion. If I want to put all those gildeds into that from the jump, like, why do I have to wait for Turbo Boost to start for the upgrade track to extend? Maybe they want people to sort of build across their character first and then build up, but it feels like a weird restriction. Just upgrade track should be 8 ranks is I think where we're arriving at for me.
Well, it's a passive nerf. It's what they're doing. It's hey, we're going to give you 3% more damage and healing in the raid once you hit this renown track, which is going to take this many weeks to get to. Hey, once we're 2 months into the raid, we're going to give you 6 more eye levels on your gear, so that it's a passive nerf to the raid content and Mythic Plus content that you're doing. That's what they're doing, right? That is where that comes from.
Well, it is.
If we got the 8 initially, if we got the 8 initially, then you're essentially allowing players to power up higher, faster, which means that you are then running into a situation where are they then tuning the content for 8 upgrade tracks on each of their gear as opposed to tuning the content for 6, right? Like,
well, as long as you have the crest caps in play, it's still kind of the same difference because you're picking and choosing. You only get those 90 crests a week, no matter what you do, and no matter how you do it, and no matter what gear you have. That's all you can spend. So you can take one item higher, but then it's the expense of leveling out your other items. So I think at the end of the day, it probably comes out in the wash in terms of overall power. But there's something that just feels a little bit weird. If this is going to be the routine every season where it's like, hey, your stuff is good, but it's not as good as it could possibly be, so you got to wait for the patch for that. I think that's just a weird spot for loot to exist in.
I think because I was just talking about the fact that my character is still wearing normal pieces and heroic pieces and not mythic, I would be using crests on that stuff, right? Because if you're someone who's not getting a mythic piece every week, you can dump, even if you get a mythic piece every week, you can dump all your crests into it and have 30 extra crests. So that 30 extra crests sort of carries over to, hey, here's a crafted piece. You can sort of work on that every now and then. But even if crafted pieces could then be pushed higher, like I would be in a situation where there would definitely be heroic pieces that I would have sunk 8 upgrades into and have a higher item level right now than I currently do if the cap was higher, right? And that's just like the situation we're in. Like, as you said, Soul Hunter boots, like the odds of me getting those on Mythic before the vendor comes in is 0, because we'll give it to any other DPS who's a leatherware before they give them to me, which means I absolutely would have just sunk more crests into the heroic boots that I got or the normal boots that I got when it came to that, and those pieces would just be higher, which means my item level would just be higher. And we're talking about runed crests for normal pieces, and we're talking about, like, would gilded crests kick in at rank 4, or would they kick in at rank 6? Because then if you can use rune crests even longer to go up to rank 6, then everyone gets 6 eye levels off runed while they're capping out their gilded still. So like it would need to be that gilded remains the last 4 upgrades on heroic, which it also would feel weird. Well, yeah. Right?
Well, that's what it does. That's how it is. I mean, that's how it will be when this comes out, is it'll be ranks 5, 6, 7, and 8 will all be gilded crests on hero gear. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like as long as you're going to keep a rigid crest cap in place for this long, that you could just bring the gear in with the 8 upgrade tracks, because then it's up to the player to make the decision. Am I building high or wide? Do I want this piece to be maxed out, or do I want to spend my crests on these 3 pieces or whatever to get them all to this rank before I go higher? Maybe pick one, right? Either uncap the crests earlier or just bring the loot in with the full tracks from day one. I feel like having the tracks just gives players more choices, right? Sure. The caps we kind of learn to live with, but hey, I wouldn't say no to, hey, we're going to extend the upgrade tracks later, but you can have more crests sooner. That would be nice. I do one or the other would make me happier than the arrangement now. I think the 90 a week just feels restrictive, and I know that, like, I understand the business model, right? Like they want to tamp your power to a level that they can expect that it's going to take you about this long to feel like you're done playing this content that they took this amount of time working on and cost this much money to make. I get it. But I think, like, empowering the player, making the player feel like they have choices, or their choices are cool, or their choices matter, is really important in a game like this. So that's just my 2 cents on, now that we're seeing, like, okay, Turbo Boost is like a proven concept now. We've had it for 1 season. I think it was great in season 2. There were some things I would have liked to see change for season 3 that don't seem like they are changing. But now it's coming back in season 3, and we kind of know what to expect. It's like, well, if this is going to be the kind of the rhythm that we get into in the middle of the season, those are just some things that occur to me as we see it come back around.
Yeah, I guess for me, the last point of potential defense against doing 6 and then moving to 8 would be the feeling of completion, and you've completed something. Hey, I've gotten this thing to 6. It's done. As opposed to, hey, I've gotten all my gear to like 5 or 4 or whatever it is, but I'm only halfway there, and I don't have enough crests, and where do I want to? I don't know if I want to use them now or hang on to them later, or like you don't get that feeling of satisfaction. It's whether or not they value that at all. I don't know. Maybe Blizzard does. Who knows? But,
right.
Yeah.
But it's like, or does it feel worse to be like, this is maxed for now?
Yeah.
I know it's not maxed forever, but like at the moment the thing's gray, so I feel good.
Exactly.
But I know I'm gonna have to do more later. Like it's
at some point.
It's a toss. I mean, there's trade-offs in everything in life, and everything with WoW, and this is one of them. But
yeah.
Anyway, Turbo Boost coming soon, so get your crest going, and please, maybe Monday when somebody's back in the office, just put out a little blue text that says, yes, also with the patch release, we will be uncapping crest acquisition, or at least up it. Let's get another 30 crests a week if you're not going to uncap it.
And this is your fair warning of be sure you're getting a Soul Hunter skill on whatever difficulty you care about, because when this comes out, the only way you're getting boots is if you can kill Soul Hunters ahead of time. So I think it'll be very telling in A, how powerful the boots are, and B, how difficult that boss was when it came to like the amount of teams that actually have killed it so far. The fact you can't catalyze the boots, which is something I asked for ages ago. You let us catalyze to those boots. That we are going to see basically everyone buying mythic boots as like their first thing. Like I feel like you are going to see tens of thousands of players immediately buy boots as the first thing that they're buying, because they don't have them yet on whatever difficulty that they have now managed to accomplish progression on for that. And they are such a dramatic increase and benefit that everyone just needs to buy them and own them. So that's one of those things.
Which I think it'd be like a mistake not to buy them, right? Like
it is.
I mean, you can look at it as in two different ways. I think it's like a good thing to have an item that's that cool and desirable that like it's just a no-brainer. Oh, I could pick anything from the slate of bosses I've killed. I want that. Like it's having a cool item like that to me is really neat. So I don't know. Heroic Soul Hunters is like reasonably accessible. I guess like for my team, we might have to set up some kind of alt rotations or something like, hey, who wants to get in for Soul Hunters this week? We'll grab a couple alts just so people can unlock the kill, so you can buy the cool boots. Like, which is actually, I mean, that's kind of a fun thing for teams to do too. So that's the kind of thing that puzzling cartel chips, for whatever complaints I may have had about them, it does open up that stuff. Like it's cool to have your friends say, hey, can I get it, bring this tune to kill this boss because I really want this item. And then you can do that. Like that's a really cool benefit of having the system.
I can tell you right off the bat, Mythic Raid teams love it. Love the cartel chips because it means they can sell these kills for so much more gold. It used to be that people were selling these things because they'd only be people wanting to buy the mounts or buy like a certain achievement unlock or try and get a very specific piece of gear off one boss, and they'd kill it to try and get it to drop. But it was like an early boss, so it wasn't really that expensive to buy kind of thing. Now it's, I need to unlock this one-time thing off of a kill to get these boots. They're like, oh, well, in that case, it's 4.5 million gold to kill Soul Hunters. And you're like, oh, am I willing to spend hundreds of actual real money in buying tokens so I have the gold to be able to, like, that is the decision people are going to have to be, it is a decision. And so raid teams definitely fund themselves for the next raid tier as far as consumables and repair bills and all that kind of stuff for those raid teams off of gold selling the boots off of things like this. So definitely an interesting market that springs up because of how these tokens work. All right. Outside of that, there was a little note here about cooldown manager. Apparently the content patch has also added some improvements to the cooldown manager, including a frame which will allow the ordering, hiding, and unhiding of spells and buffs. So if you're someone who has not tried out the cooldown manager or did and was like, this thing's useless because there's just too much stuff on my screen that happens when this thing is on, it's getting all those updates in this patch. So it might be worth checking it out once October 7th rolls around and you turn this on and are like, hey, I can hide all the things I want to hide now and move it where I want to move it and order them the way I want to order them. That could be really nice.
Imagine that. Yeah. Imagine being able to actually manage your cooldowns with the cooldown manager feature. Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, the mock-ups and stuff, I don't know what to call them, but the blog they put out that had screenshots and examples of what they wanted to do looked good. I haven't messed with this on PTR. I have played PTR, but only Legion Remix. So I haven't messed with this, but Yeah, this was a thing that when it came in, it was immediately like, no, this is not using this. This is not beneficial. But this might be the era where it's like, okay, now you can actually tweak it to match your playstyle, match your needs, show you the information you want to see, which is really important for the game to have baked in baseline. So looking forward to messing with it. I still don't know if it's going to be a thing I'm actually using, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to try to set it up and see if I can do stuff that I like with it. And if not, they're going to keep working on it, and there'll be a new iteration of it. And, it's all part of just where they need to get the baseline UI to after years of neglect.
Yeah, and they specifically say unhiding of spells and buffs. I'm really curious what buffs this is going to track, because for me, especially with the current tier sets for Druid, there are certain buffs you need to track. So I'm hoping that all that stuff, like all the tier set buffs and everything else, ends up in that as a, hey, this is a trackable thing. Eventually, it'd be nice to be able to like open it up and just pick from a large list of all your buffs and spells which things you want to actually track and have in there, and even have like Fortitude and Mark of the Wild and that kind of stuff as trackables. So if those are grayed out and there's someone in the group who can cast it, you can actually remind them to cast it for you. Like that to me would be a neat thing to be able to actually include in there too. So hopefully we move in that direction. It seems like they have good traction on it, so we'll see what happens. All right. With that, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Our Patreon is live over at patreon.com/thestartingzone. I strongly recommend you head on over there on your desktop computer, not on your phone, because you will just have a 30% upcharge on your phone that just goes straight to the phone company, as opposed to going to, us or you, and that's silly. So why do that? Just use your computer to do it, and that would be much better overall. I want to give a shout out and thank you this week to all of our patrons, but in specific, these particular patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. And so Arajian, Anthony, Bradley, Bruce, Chris, James, Garrett, Kapawi, and Shorel, thank you. Thank you very much for all that you give. We also have 2 new patrons this week, Michael J. and Uya. We really appreciate you hopping in and supporting the show as well. If I didn't say your name right, then, feel free to DM me and let me know, or message me over in our Discord server, startingzone.com/Discord. We're looking forward to chatting with folks over there. But we really appreciate new patrons popping in. Really appreciate all of our patrons, past and present, that help keep the show online and running, and all the archives online, and more people finding it and paying the bills. I have a new boom arm mic this week, so maybe I sound better than I previously did, hopefully. I'm maybe less crunchy, or there's less background noise or whatever it is that's happening. That would be really nice, because my last one was falling apart. So I'd had that last boom arm since before I did the show with Mick. It had been that long, guys. It had been a long time. So yes, definitely definitely good to get that done and get it all replaced. And that's the type of thing that patrons help support for us to make sure the show keeps going and we produce the best stuff for you. So thank you, patrons.
Absolutely. Welcome aboard, new patrons. Appreciate the support. Really great to have you. We've been seeing, a bunch of new patrons lately, and it's nice. We've been at this a long time, and the Patreon's been around a long time. So it's nice to see new faces pop in, and great to have you with us. And thank you, everybody. Yeah, I think that boom arm was probably older than my kids.
It was,
and they're in 3rd grade now.
Yeah,
so but yeah, thanks, patrons, so much. We really couldn't do without you. It means a lot, and your support is huge, and keeps us going, keeps these episodes coming to you on a weekly basis. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, there's not a lot of tech that is lying around the show that is still older than your kids, but that was one of the pieces, that's for sure. It's one of the OG pieces. All right. Another great way to support the show is head on over to your iTunes, your Apple Podcasts, and leave with those 5-star reviews. They really help us out and help raise us up those charts. That's going to wrap up episode 702 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can head on over to thestartingzonepodcast.com, the official website for The Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or write us an email, you can do that at thestartingzone@gmail.com, or reach out to us on Blue Sky at thestartingzone.bsky.social. We still have a Twitter account, Starting Zone, which is just at the Starting Zone. And you can also, as I said, join our Discord server by going to thestartingzone.com/Discord. And Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
You can find me on socials over on Twitter at Shieldwald or on Blue Sky at jlucas.bsky.social. Usually just post stuff to Blue Sky, but I do check both sites regularly, so come say hi in either place. And you can find video channels on twitch.tv/Shieldwald and youtube.com/Shieldwald. Streams are usually Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday, 7:30 Eastern for Raid and Keystone stuff. Although I've been skipping Sundays because I don't know. Sundays are just a whole other thing, It's it's a lot of pressure. So I don't know. I'll probably throw stream on this week, and we'll see if we can get back into the rhythm. YouTube, I haven't been streaming too much, but the Shade Fur Brew Thief drop event is finally over. That thing was on offer for quite some time. So I think I got to reconfigure my YouTube stream key, but see if we can start doing some co-streams over there if you want to check that out. So check out the video channels as well. Come say hi.
If you're trying to find me, you can find me over on Blue Sky at spencerhd.bsky.social, over on Twitter at Spencer_Downey, or you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD. I have a YouTube channel too, youtube.com/@SpencerHD. If you want to throw a follow on either of those, feel free, and you'll be able to know when I go live on things. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.